tell you a story. Let's talk about something. Let me tell you a story. It was this young boy named Jamal. Jamal, a bright, energetic, black student that had ADHD. And he blurted out an answer in class. He blurted out during his 6th grade year, he blurted out an answer during class. And his teacher saw it as disrespect. Jamal was suspended, not for fighting, not for cursing, not for bringing weapons to school, not for threatening anyone. He was suspended just for being willfully defiant. How many of our kids are willfully defiant? How many 6th graders we know are willfully defiant? It was a mistake. It was one mistake, but it was the first of many because he seen how he was treated, and so he was suspended. For about the 10th grade, Jamal had so many suspensions that Jamal dropped out. 2 years later, after he dropped out, he was arrested for trespass. Now, was that mistake that Jamal made in the 6th grade because of his impulsiveness, or was that it was the real mistake on how the school system responded to his mistake, suspending him instead of counseling him? But they had to do it because of what they call a zero tolerance policy. So we're going to talk about in this segment, our very first segment in this episode, what is a zero tolerance policy?
Mic check, 1, 2. Welcome to the wave. It's the South, got something to say. No time to behave. We talk truth from the booth. Ain't no time for the fake. Politics, pain, and power. Every move that we make. From Selma to Savannah, we rise and we stand. With a voice for the voiceless and truth in our hand. Portez blazing. Every Thursday we ignite Southern soul in your speakers. We shine that light up. Down in the South, we got something to say. Turn the volume up. We don't play. From the struggle to the rise, we pave that way. It's the real every week. Press play, press play.
We told y'all on last week that this 10-part series, we laying a critical foundation for our itty bitties, our babies. This school to prison pipeline is real. And we are not just gonna sit back and not expose and confront head on what's going on. This is not just a metaphor. The real system of policy, practice, and decisions that push our students out of school and right into the criminal justice system. We heard examples. We talked about examples on last week. We heard examples of students suspended for bringing butter knives or water guns or play clocks to school. We have seen kids get arrested for having an emotional outburst action. They used to be handled with counseling, detention, in-school suspension, not handcuffs. We are handcuffing our students. We to introduce police officers to our school and call them school resource officers. Police stationed in the schools marked the turning point. These officers began handling discipline issues instead of criminal charges, criminal behavior. They start turning misbehavior into criminal charges. Misbehavior that once led to parent-teacher conference, in-school suspension, a little pat on your butt, they now end up in the courtroom. And we ain't just come talking. We brought statistics. 72% of the incarcerated inmates in the state of Alabama had an IEP in school. They have been identified with a disability during their school years, 72% right here in Alabama. Black students made up 15% of the population, but 33% of the first-time suspended students, or 42% of the multiple suspended students. And we don't see a trend, and we don't see a problem. And I got a problem on how we don't see a problem. This school to pipeline, this school to prison pipeline is real. That's why the pipeline project is so important. That's why we gotta lock in, because these numbers ain't just statistics. They the story of a systematic failure for our kids. Children affected by trauma, mental illness, learning differences, poverty, and are often punished instead of supported. Let's talk about it. These kids are often punished instead of supported. The episode we had on last week emphasized how implicit bias and systemic racism fuel these disparities. A black boy with ADHD may be labeled defiant or suspended. A foster child dealing with instability might be criminalized for truancy. But in this episode, we finna unpack the problem now. Now we finna start unpacking the problem. We gave you a broad generalization of the problem. Now we finna start unpacking the problem. We're gonna expose, explore, and engage what systems that they are putting in place that impact our students, especially the black and brown marginalized students. I'm your host, Mayor Bo, and today we're diving into something that shaped generations of students more than people realize, and that's our school disciplinary policies. That's our school disciplinary policies. They are shaping our generation of kids more than we think, more than we understand. I did this research myself because I knew how I see it every day in what I do. What I do for a living, I see it every day. All right, so you probably heard the term zero tolerance before, but have you ever really considered what that means? When a child forgets their homework or taught back in class, it should be discipline and rules in place. But what happens when a system treats every one mistake like it's a crime? What happens when a system treats every one mistake like a crime? That's the show today. We're gonna break down and understand what is a zero tolerance policy. Zero tolerance policies exploded in the 1990s during the war on drugs. If anybody remember that era right after Nancy Reagan and they started the Just Say No campaign on drugs, zero tolerance policies was just thrown everywhere in every situation, including our school. And then they expanded into schools after tragedies like what happened in Columbine during the 90s. Let's talk about it. These policies mandated automatic punishment, suspension, expulsions, and even police referrals for a wide range of infractions. No matter how minor the infraction is, the policy covers what you do to the child. So when they was out in the streets getting tough on crime, they was also getting tough in our schools. Sound like tough on crime in our schools, right? But here's the twist. Y'all, let's wait on the twist. These policies wasn't just used for weapons or drugs. I can understand these policies, they were just used for weapons or drugs in the school. But kids have been suspended for breaking nail clippers, aspirin, making finger guns, all type of little kid behavior with laying you suspended. It was this little boy, I think he was in New Jersey, a 14-year-old, wanted to be a scientist, wanted to build an engineer, wanted to build things, brought a homemade clock. Now remember the name, is Ahmed Muhammad. He bought a homemade clock to school that he built in his room. He was proud of it. But his teachers thought it was a bomb. He was arrested and he never returned to school. Look it up. That wasn't about safety. It was about a perception, it was about profiling, and it was about punishment. They profiled the young man. That wasn't about safety. So when you look at Jamal, who's a black kid, Ahmed Muhammad, which has the Arabic sound to it, that lets you know what we're gonna talk about in our next segment, segment 2. Who's most affected? Let's talk numbers. You know I'm a numbers guy, I'm a stat guy. Black students are 3.5 times more likely to be suspended than white students. Students with disabilities, they are only 13% of enrollment, but they make up over 25% of students arrested at school. I'm a numbers guy. Latino students face harsher punishment for the same behavior as their white peers. I'm a numbers guy. These aren't just numbers, they are patterns, and patterns have roots. Let's talk about it. You know how we do it on the South Got Something to Say podcast? These ain't just numbers, it's a pattern. This is what we call over on the South Got Something to Say podcast, something that people don't want to address, and that's systemic racism. Black and brown kids, especially black and brown kids that have been identified with a learning disability or any type of disability. These patterns have roots. And it's our job to talk about them over here because we're raising itty bitties in these schools as we speak. So over here in the South Got Something to Say podcast where we lock in and focus on our itty bitties. You think that we ain't gonna chime in when we see patterns? But what do? We don't talk about it. If you stay tuned to the end, we're gonna talk about what we can do. It was a civil rights report I found in my research from Arizona. And it said Latino students was twice as likely to be suspended for subjective offenses like disrespect, not weapons, disrespect, not for violence, disrespect. And we don't see a problem. The same with black kids. Twice as likely to be suspended for subjective offenses like disrespect. Not for weapons, not for violence. Just the tone. Just the tone, just their demeanor, just their abrasiveness will get them kicked out of school because of who they are and what they look like, how big they are, how tough they look. They don't want to deal with them. So they put zero tolerance policies in place. That's what we're talking about today. Zero tolerance policies. So now we're going to move on into our next segment, and we're going to talk about how those suspensions directly lead them to a criminal justice system. How those suspensions directly lead them to a juvenile detention center. How those suspensions directly lead them to a specialized treatment center. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about it. What happens after a student is suspended? Number one, they remove from their class and from around their peers. Number two, they miss instruction. Vital and critical instructions. And number three, they fall behind. Number four, they become disengaged because they other peers that left them because they missed vital instruction while they was out. And then, after so many suspensions, you know what's coming, don't you? You know what's coming after so many suspensions. Here come the truancy, here come the referrals, and finally, here comes the police. You see a trend here? You see how these suspensions lead to things. Take this case in South Carolina. Check this out, South Carolina. Two 13-year-old girls, black girls, got into a shoving match in the hallway. Two 13-year-old girls got into a shoving match. Not a fist fight, not a gun fight, a shoving match. No one was hurt. But instead of giving them detention, they was arrested in front of their classmates. Instead of giving them detention, they was arrested for a shoving match. Everything I'm doing, y'all can do your own research. I looked up some of the most critical cases of this the school to prison pipeline. I researched some of the most the most intriguing cases of this, and this was one of them that I found. That arrest went on these girls' records. That arrest follows them girls forever. And that record, having a criminal record, could change everything for these kids. Having a criminal record can change everything for these kids. And right now, we are building cases. We are literally building cases on our babies. We are literally building cases on our baby. So what happened as we travel to the next segment? What happens when discipline becomes dispossession? What happens when discipline becomes dispossession? Let's be clear. And I don't want nobody to misconstrue what I'm saying here. And I don't want nobody to mince my words as something I'm not saying. Schools must be safe. It is mandatory that children have a safe, fun, and productive learning environment. I'm not trying to take away from safety, but it has been research studied and shown that these policies don't make schools safer. It has turned into the opposite. Now, I can give you some things, but I don't want to be biased. I don't want to be so biased, but I can show you how ignoring certain demographic of people, don't talk about it, Mailboat. We can show you how ignoring certain demographic of people and targeting other demographic of people can end up in tragedy. And I leave it at that. And I say it like that and I leave it at that. Ignoring one demographic of people and don't put these same policies on certain demographic of people can lead to tragedy. But let's be clear. I want y'all to understand me clearly. I am not a proponent. I'm not a person that wants schools not safe. Schools must be safe, but you must do it right. That's why I got several intervention strategies we can use in our schools. Let's talk about it. Schools must be safe, but punishment without context, with punishment without compassion, it's not justice. It's not justice. That is what you call dispossession. Punishment without context, not understanding why, not understanding the when, the who, the what kids are going through, what trauma they receive. That's not justice. And here's the hard truth. This the hard truth. Zero tolerance policies don't work. Research have shown that these policies don't improve behavior. They don't improve school climate. But what they do, it removes students, especially students that look like me, Black students, disabled students. They remove them from the classroom and push them to the margins. That's the reality, y'all. That's the reality. These policies do not improve the school climate. They do not make schools safer. What they do is remove students, especially Black and disabled students, from the classroom and send them right to a criminal justice system. Idle mind is the devil playground. What are our babies doing when you keep suspending them? What are they doing when they're being expelled? For minor infractions. What are we doing? See, we trying to discipline our way out of dysfunction. We trying to create policies to get us out of dysfunction when we need to really support and connect and heal. That's what we really need. We need support, connection, and healing. And once we get support, connection, and healing, Once we get our kids to a point where they trust us, once we get kids that look like me to trust the system, and don't believe that a system is only trying to push them into them new prison that KI is building. We need to have support, connection, and healing. We trying to discipline our way out of this dysfunction. When the system is corrupt, when the education system is corrupt, we gotta lock in on our babies and let our babies know that we here for support, connection, and healing. So in our final segment, we're gonna talk about what our schools should be doing. Now, you're talking to an educator who has a master's degree in special education, who actually serves as a principal of a specialized treatment center. So I got firsthand information. I see these babies, I see the itty bitties all the time. That all they need is a chance. So what schools should be doing? See, my credentials alone will let you know that I just don't make stuff up. See this stuff every day. I studied all type of different behaviors. How can we support, connect, and heal? That's what we should. That's what our schools should be doing. Instead of these zero tolerance policies, we're going to give you alternate strategies and interventions you can do for our babies. Let's talk about it. So what are some of the alternatives? What should our schools be doing? Restorative justice. We got a whole episode coming on restorative justice. Y'all please be tuned in for restorative justice. Trauma-informed care. We got an episode coming about trauma-informed care. I think it's tied in with our restorative justice. But trauma-informed care, we need more counseling in our schools, not more resource officers. We don't need more police officers. We need more counselors. Sixth graders getting searched up and down, getting put in handcuffs and having outbursts in school. That don't do nothing but criminalize and make them feel like criminals. Now, every school district, this federal law should have positive behavior interventions and supports. It's called PBIS, y'all. Y'all need to start asking when you go up to these schools when they suspend your children, ask them, ask your principal, ask the people who suspending your baby, your itty bitty, what positive behavior interventions and support have you used? They're using none. I tell you the answer right now. What positive behavior interventions and support? Y'all got to become more informed yourself. I mean, I'm giving you the answer to the test. I'm sitting here nice enough to give you the answers to the test. Positive behavior interventions and support. Y'all need to learn, look that up, PBIS. Because it worked miracles in Oakland, California, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to have a whole episode on these alternatives. And another one is mental health services. What are we doing to support our mentally ill students besides kicking them out of school? What are we doing to our mentally ill students, our traumatized students, our students that come from a different socioeconomic background? What are we doing for those? What are we doing for the kids that can't afford the Jordans? They can't afford it, they family can't afford it, and they getting picked on and bullied because of what they wear in the school. What are we doing? And we need to start talking to our babies. Babies spoiled right. Babies rotten to the core. Ungrateful and unappreciative babies. You work your finger to the bone to give them whatever they got, but they'll take it and go joke on somebody that ain't got what they got, like they work for. I told you it's gonna be a hard truth. Some of y'all work y'all finger to the bone to get the most, the brightest, and the best for your babies. And they go to school and turn that into bullying because of somebody who can't afford it, because they come from a different socioeconomic background. See, the truth don't know who tell it. And a lie don't care who tell it. And I'm here only for the truth. We got to start talking to our babies. And we need to stop rewarding our baby for bad behavior. Ain't no way in the world you should be getting put out of school or suspended from school for talking about somebody. You will go to school dressed just like who you were talking about. And learn how it feels. And we got to have more peer mediation. Our babies got to be able to lead our babies in the right direction. All that comes from learning. All that comes from training. All that comes from home training. All that comes from administrators enforcing some of these positive behavior interventions and supports, which we're gonna talk about in detail. We got 8 more episodes, y'all. Those are some alternatives. These approaches don't ignore bad behavior. Ain't nobody trying to get you to ignore bad behavior, but they get down to the root cause of that bad behavior. See, we need to start getting down to the root cause of that bad behavior. Now, I reference Oakland, California, because Oakland, California started restorative circles. Instead of suspension, they started doing restorative circles, and the suspension rates dropped. The graduation rate went up. They literally had more counselors in the school, and if you get in trouble, you got to go. And they dig down deep. It got into what was the root cause. So we know it worked. We seen it work. It worked over in Oakland, California. We seen it work. But what will it take? What would it take for it to be in your district? Number one, the first thing it takes, you got to get up and go find out what's going on in these schools. Y'all trust these school systems way too much. Y'all trust these systems way too much. You need to get more involved in your baby education. Hard subject to hear. I ain't here to appease your feelings. I got to tell you what the truth is. And once you start getting more involved, you need to start doing more research and understanding what rights your children have. What rights do you have? You need to ask them when your baby come home with a 3-day suspension letter. Okay, ma'am, I understand my baby had an emotional outburst in class, but what positive behavior interventions and supports did you use? I'm getting you an answer to the test. It shouldn't be so easy to send the baby home. When you know what suspension leads to, you know what expelling leads to. It leads to this pipeline that we are talking about. This pipeline project that we're doing now is because of these things that we're talking about. So I'm giving you the answers to the test. Let's talk about it. Because we've seen it work over in Oakland, California. And that's just one example. There's other places too. I just used that one example. But when we get into restorative justice, we're going to talk about it. So here's the takeaway from this episode. This is the takeaway from this episode. Zero tolerance was designed to protect, but it ended up excluding. It was designed. It's somebody brilliant mind. These zero tolerance policies were designed to protect schools and make schools safer. But it ended up excluding students. It ended up discriminating against students. It ended up being more black and brown students that fell under these zero tolerance policies. We end up criminalizing kids for being a child. We criminalize their childhood. And we did it unevenly and unjustly. We did it using the same systemic racism that been used for 400 years on people who look like me. So parents, administrators, teachers, what can you do? If you're an educator, rethink your discipline policies. If you're a parent, ask about your school policy. And if you're a student, know your rights. And if you're in this community, we need to speak up. That's what we can do. That's what we can do. It's not hard to ask your school board member, hey, why, because you got to vote for these people. Why is our zero tolerance policy so strict? Why can't we just rethink these things? Why can't we just sit down and come up with some common, positive behavior interventions and supports? Hey, superintendent, school board member, you ever heard of restorative justice? It worked in Oakland, California. See, I heard over there on this South Got Something to Say podcast, they were talking about restorative justice. And you'd have been and did your own research. That's what you can do as a parent, as a community member, and students. Know your rights and take your tail to school and do what you're supposed to do. Remember, you're no better than nobody else. You don't know what the next child dealing with. So next week we got a powerful show. We're going to talk about this law and order, this rise of school resource officers, school police in the school. That's what we're talking about next week. Episode 3, we're going to dig deep into the rise of the school resource officers, the role they play, the role they're supposed to play, the role they should play, and the role they're actually playing. Come back next week when we break down these school resource officers. Come back next week. Go to the YouTube space. Hey, if you're an educator, if you're a parent and you want to come, not dispute, but discuss, we can talk about all these things over on the South Got Something to Say podcast. This ain't my show, this is our show. We can talk about it all. But at the end of the day, if you ain't about helping itty bitties, what you doing? And y'all know how passionate I am about the itty bitties. Each one, teach one, love or be loved.
Yo, hit that sub if you feel what we're bringing. Bring truth from the south, yeah, the bell steady ringing. We talk real talk, no cap, no disguise. From the block to the boardroom, we open in the eye. Politics, pain, and the power we claim. Every topic on fire, but the mission the same. Don't scroll past, take a second, press play. Cause the south got something to say every week. No, yo. Subscribe right now, don't wait, don't sleep. Got the truth in your ear and the vibe run deep. Real talk from the south, we gon' lead the way. So lock in with the team, got something to say.